Welcome back to another video, guys. Today I'm going to be ranking my favorite Star Wars movies and TV shows. So without further ado, let's get started. So first we have episode 1, Phantom Menace. So Phantom Menace for me is a really special Star Wars movie. It was the first Star Wars movie I ever watched. I watched it in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9 as they came out. But yeah, well, episode 1 for me is a really special one, but I do recognize that it has its flaws, like, for example, its pacing isn't the greatest, but it has many great moments as well, which make up for its mistakes. Like, for example, Duel of the Fates. I remember watching that as a kid, seeing Maul. He was such a menacing character, and like used to love that duel. And yeah, it's just such a classic, man, and we gotta put it in B tier. Next, we have episode 2. Now, episode 2 I think also goes in B tier, but above Phantom Menace. I think that episode 2 is a very underrated movie and overhated in my opinion. It just gets so much hate for its dialogue, but like, George Lucas, that's not the point of Star Wars, first of all. The point of Star Wars is not its dialogue. Star Wars is told through visuals and like other aspects of cinema rather than just through dialogue. And George Lucas has actually stated this as well many times, that he doesn't really care about the dialogue. That's not the point of Star Wars. That's not why he makes Star Wars. And he recognizes that he's not good at writing dialogue, but he says he prioritizes other aspects of movies more than the dialogue, because he says that basically if a dialogue is lacking, it can still be changed on set, whereas other things can't, so he prioritizes other stuff while he's writing the scripts. So next we have Revenge of the Sith. Now, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie. I think that it's basically top tier Star Wars. Nothing can really top it, except for maybe the Clone Wars, which we'll get to in a second. But I remember, man, like, I would watch this every other day as a kid. I would just sit down and watch this movie religiously. And yeah, I used to love this movie as a kid. I still love it right now, and it just means so much to me. I think the plot is amazing. Seeing Anakin turn into Vader, just the darkness of it, Order 66, just everything about this movie is so amazing, and I just love it so much. Next, we have episode 4. Now, episode 4 is also going to go in S tier for me. Episode 4 is such a high quality movie, especially for its release date in 1977. It was astounding, like, to everyone, especially back then. People were astounded by its quality, and to this day, it still remains as one of the highest quality movies ever made. It's perfection. Its plot is perfection, cinematography. Everything you can ask for is perfection as we follow this boy's journey into becoming, discovering his identity, I guess, and yeah. And so the sequel to episode 4, Empire Strikes Back, I think goes higher than episode 4. It just tops it in so many ways. It's just such a cozy movie, and it obviously has one of the biggest plot twists in movie history, in cinema history. It has the biggest plot twist in cinema history, in my opinion. Like, especially audiences back then, seeing this movie for the first time, it had such an impact. I mean, to be fair, the entire original trilogy had such an impact on cinema, not just audiences in general. These movies are so iconic and so amazing, and I just love them so much for what they are, what they've done for Star Wars, for cinema in general. And they just mean so much to me, especially Empire Strikes Back, I think, is a really, really high quality movie. I love watching Empire Strikes Back. And yeah, so let's move on to the next one, which is Return of the Jedi, obviously. I think that Return of the Jedi is a really good movie, and it is better than episode 4. However, I'm going to put it behind Empire Strikes Back, just because it doesn't give me that same feel as Empire Strikes Back does, especially, seeing that, although when I watched Star Wars, I didn't get the plot twist, because I obviously watched it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I knew that Anakin was, Luke's father, obviously, but still, seeing that moment where Luke finds out that Vader is his dad is just so amazing, and it's one of the best pieces of cinema ever made, I think. Next, we're going to move on to Force Awakens. So when this first released, I saw it in cinemas, and I actually loved this movie. I thought it was amazing, and to this day, I do think it's a pretty high quality movie. I do think this movie is better than episode 1 and episode 2, but I am gonna have to put it on the same tier as them. Like, I'm not gonna go and put it in A tier. I do think Force Awakens is a really high quality movie. Yes, it might be a carbon copy of episode 4 pretty much, but even though it is a carbon copy of Episode 4, we love Episode 4, man. Episode 4 is amazing. So they've replicated Episode 4 with this movie, and they've done a pretty good job of it. I think that what ruins Episode 7 for most people is the way Disney decided to continue with the rest of the sequels, and how they just ruined everyone's beloved characters. They've, made this Mary Sue character who has this unexplainable strength that, yeah, man, like, we'll get to that in a second when we go into detail about the rest of them, the rest of the sequels. But for me, Force Awakens is actually a pretty good movie. I like watching The Force Awakens, and yeah, I'm not a big sequel fan at all. I don't like the sequels, but Force Awakens, I think, is pretty good. So let's move on to Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I'm gonna put this in D tier for obvious reasons. They've just ruined Luke's character. Luke Skywalker for me was a massive, like, when I was a kid, I used to have this Luke Skywalker lightsaber that I would carry around with me everywhere. I'd pretend I was Luke Skywalker. He was, he was a massive hero for me as a kid, and he is still now. I love Luke Skywalker. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. And what they've done with his character is just so outrageous. And not even that, it's just, it feels like the movie wasn't even a continuation of Force Awakens. It just feels so different. Well, it's because of the different director they had, like, and there are just so many different flaws with the movie. It's just that they've basically ruined Star Wars with this movie. This is the first movie that Star Wars started going downhill from, I think. Especially, also, I just remembered that scene, for example, of Leia floating in space and then coming back into the station or the ship, whatever it was. Like, there are just so many stupid moments like that in the movie that make you hate it. Next, we'll move on to Episode 9. I think that Episode 9, although is still really terrible, is a higher tier than Episode 8. Like, come on, man. Somehow Palpatine returned, yes, of course, but Episode 9 had its good moments. It wasn't a good movie at all, but it had its good moments. Episode 8 has no good moments for me at all. I actually remember being hyped for Episode 9, because Episode 8 had absolutely just ruined our hopes and dreams, but there was still that tiny bit of slithering hope remaining that Episode 9 was going to be good. And we saw its trailer, and the trailer looked goddamn good, man. It didn't look like the best thing, but it looked promising. But then it was quite disappointing, actually, walking out of the cinema after watching it. But I do think it was still better than Episode 8. Rogue One. So Rogue One, I love Rogue One. Rogue One's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. I'm going to put it in S tier. I think it deserves S tier fully. Like, there's no doubt that this movie is going to be an S tier. I would even go as far as saying it's better than Episode 4. I love Rogue One. Rogue One is an amazing movie, maybe even better than Episode 6. I'm not sure. I'll put it below Episode 6 for now. But Rogue One, although people say it wasn't needed, I do think it was very needed. I think we needed to know the story of right before Episode 4. That title scroll of Episode 4 is basically Rogue One. And yeah, Rogue One had amazing characters, amazing script, amazing writing, amazing cinematography. It was very top tier, and I remember being very pleased with it when it first came out in cinemas. So let's move on to Andor. Andor is actually one of Disney's very, very rare W's. I think that Andor, well, not very, very rare, but it's pretty rare. Andor, I think, was an awesome TV show to watch, especially with world building, cinematography, characters. Andor just feels so dark, and it's perfect, man. It just truly gives you that experience of the tyranny that the Empire enforced on everyone at the time. It makes you feel like a citizen, like a random citizen on any planet, I don't know. For example, when they go to that village and they're all like terrified of the Empire, you really feel that. And yeah, I just love the way it makes you feel. I just thought of another scene too, when they're up in the mountains and one TIE fighter is chasing them. Man, that TIE fighter is scary, man. Just one single TIE fighter makes you so scared, and it's so menacing. Usually in other Star Wars movies, you have a fleet of TIE fighters, 20 TIE fighters, and you take them out one by one in an X-Wing, because you're a rebel. But yeah, in Andor, one TIE fighter was so scary for all the characters and the audience. It was just truly an amazing scene. What they've done with Andor is, I think, awesome, and yeah. Although it does get a lot of hate, people call it not Star Wars, I definitely do not agree with that. I think Andor is perfect Star Wars, man. I love Andor. I'm gonna chuck Andor probably around here. Next we have Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, this show was a pretty big disappointment, especially the first couple of episodes. Now, I did love its finale. I do love the finale episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I would rewatch it right now again, and I would enjoy every single bit of it. That dialogue between Kenobi and Vader, like, I'm sorry, Anakin. I am what you made me. And like, just that whole sequence was awesome. And I'm not gonna lie, it made me cry. Like, I cried watching that scene. I think that it was awesome, but looking at the show as a whole, it felt cheap. It felt incomplete. It's like, for example, that chasing scene with Leia. Like, a stormtrooper was chasing her, and Leia's trying to run away, and it just felt like a fan film at some points in the movie. Or that fake Jedi trying to convince people that he was a Jedi. Like, it just felt like a fan film at times. It felt really cheap. It felt like it had a low budget. But yeah, I think that overall, the show probably deserves to go in C tier. Now next, we have The Mandalorian. Now, The Mandalorian was a perfect show until the third season was released. I would have put Mandalorian in S tier easily if the third season didn't exist. But the third season, I don't understand how that happened, but they've just managed to ruin a perfectly good show. Like, there were so many episodes of the third season, I was just like, what? What's going on? Especially that one party episode. Like, how does that belong in The Mandalorian? Please, someone explain to me. That being said, though, just because of the fact that season 1 and 2 are really high quality, I'm gonna put Mandalorian in A tier. I do think that episode 3 had some good parts, like especially that episode with Dr. Pershing. I loved that episode, although it gets hate. I don't understand why. I loved seeing the life of a doctor working for the Empire in Star Wars. Well, the remnants of the Empire in Star Wars. It was pretty enjoyable for me. Next, we have Star Wars The Clone Wars, obviously. I'm a massive Clone Wars fan. I love The Clone Wars. And I would go as far as saying it does go above episode 3 as well, just because it's such a long show. Although Clone Wars obviously has its flaws as well, I think the first season of Clone Wars is not the greatest, obviously. I don't think anyone is out here claiming that. But season 5, 6, and 7 are just art. They're just pure art, and especially season 7. The Clone Wars is just what Star Wars means to me. It's the perfect embodiment of Star Wars. It gives you everything. It gives you the dark moments of Star Wars. It gives you the lighthearted moments of Star Wars. It gives you action. It gives you just anything you can ask for in Star Wars. The Clone Wars delivers. So yeah, I really, really love the Clone Wars. Next, we'll move on to Rebels. I'd put Rebels in S tier as well. I have a lot of things in S tier right now. We'll put Rebels around. It's better than A New Hope, but not Rogue One, so we'll put it there. So yeah, I love Rebels. Rebels is one of my favorite TV shows of Star Wars, probably like second or third. Rebels, although it does also have its moments where it's just like, it's unnecessary and it gets repetitive. A lot of episodes of Rebels are repetitive, like that whole formula of the crew being in the ship, a problem arises, they disband, they split into 2 or 3 groups, usually 2 groups. They deal with the problem, barely escape from the problem, and then they reband in the ship. That's the whole formula of basically every episode of Rebels, but it works. It works, so I'm not complaining about it. And I love that whole family dynamic that the crew of the Ghost have, like, especially that dynamic between Kanan and Ezra as the master and apprentice relationship. I really enjoy seeing that. I love seeing Ahsoka's moments in the show too, especially when she comes in and just beats the asses of like a bunch of Inquisitors and stuff. She's so badass in the show and I love her. Next we have Star Wars Resistance. I've actually never seen this show. I don't think I'll ever see the show. I don't really care about it too much. I tried to watch like the first 5 minutes of the first episode and I just clicked off of it. Like, I really don't care about it. It doesn't interest me at all. It's not anything crucial to Star Wars. It's not very enticing, so I'm not gonna watch it. And I'm not gonna comment about it. But yeah. Next up, we have Solo. So now I'm gonna talk about Solo a little bit. Solo, for some reason, is really overhated in my opinion. Dude, I love Solo. Solo's an amazing movie. It's not S tier or anything, but Solo's good. I like Solo. I don't understand why people don't like Solo. Like, it has a cool plot, it has cool characters. Like, is it because Han Solo was recasted? Is that why people don't like it? I actually have no idea. But its ratings are low. People say they don't like Solo. I don't understand why. I think Solo is like a solid B tier for me. And like, yeah, I think it would go above Force Awakens too. Why can't I? There we go. Yeah, I love Solo, man. Solo's a really solid movie in my opinion. Next, we have Tales of the Jedi. Now, Tales of the Jedi is hands down one of the best projects that Disney released. Tales of the Jedi, although it was so short, and it was short and sweet, man. That's like the best way to sum it up. Tales of the Jedi, it adds, I don't want to say so much to the lore, but it adds to the lore, and it's just amazing. It feels like a continuation of the Clone Wars, not continuation, but it feels like unreleased episodes of the Clone Wars. So I just love that it gives you that vibe. So I'm gonna pop it up here in S tier along with all the other projects. Just because it is so short, I'm gonna put it down the bottom of the list. But if they keep releasing it, it can move up the ranks, man. Like Tales of the Jedi is so far it's perfect. Next, Star Wars Visions. I haven't seen Visions. I'm not gonna see it. I don't think so. I'm not gonna comment too much on it. So yeah, let's just skip over Visions. Bad Batch. I do think Bad Batch is a good show, but it's not the most necessary show. I really like the dark episodes of the Bad Batch, especially where they show characters from the Clone Wars and how they've evolved and how they're traveling in life. Seeing Cody was amazing in Season 2. Seeing Rex was amazing. But it does also have its really goofy and unnecessary moments. Omega gets kind of boring. I like Omega. Like, I'm not one of those people that dislike Omega, but she does get cheesy at times, I want to say. So overall, Bad Batch is a good show. It's not the most amazing show, but it's a solid show, man, and I'd put it probably in B tier. Oh, now, the Book of Boba Fett. The biggest disappointment in Star Wars we've had in a while, I reckon. Like, apart from the sequels, obviously, it's the biggest disappointment we've had. I'm gonna pop this in D tier. I'm gonna pop it above episode 8, but I'm gonna pop it below Rise of Skywalker. So I would quite literally rather watch The Rise of Skywalker again than watch the Book of Boba Fett. But the Book of Boba Fett was so disappointing in so many ways. It started off amazing in episode 1. It was super cool seeing Boba's relationship with the Tuskens, and then, man, I don't understand. Did they like rewrite the show or something? That's what it feels like. I feel like they just went a completely different direction after the first episode, and yeah, I don't really understand what they've done with it. The Mandalorian came in to save the show, and he kind of did. Like, I liked some of the episodes with the Mandalorian, but like not really, because it's not his show, so it just felt strange. It just felt like another season of the Mandalorian instead of feeling like Boba Fett. And I love Boba Fett. I love the character of Boba Fett, so I wanted to see Boba Fett, and I didn't, which was super disappointing. But yeah, like overall, Boba Fett was a pretty disappointing show. Now, there is no Ahsoka on this list for some reason. There was no Ahsoka, so I'm gonna pretend that Ahsoka is there, and I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on Ahsoka. I just realized that you can add additional images to the list, but too late for that now. We've already started recording, whatever. Ahsoka, I think, would... I don't know, I think it goes in A tier below The Mandalorian. Like right here, slots right next to The Mandalorian here. I did like Ahsoka. Ahsoka, I felt, was a pretty good show, especially for Filoni's first true outing with live action, apart from, you know, because, like, by himself, solo outing with live action. It did have its flaws, like, especially that finale was really, not really disappointing, but it was underwhelming, to say the least, and, yeah, overall, Ahsoka was a W, especially episode 5 was amazing. No, I'm not gonna lie though, my expectations were higher for episode 5, but episode 5 still fulfilled my expectations, if that makes sense. But overall, Ahsoka had... It was a flawed masterpiece. I don't want to call it a flawed masterpiece, but it was a flawed good content of Star Wars, if that makes sense. It was solid, it was good. I'd overall give it like an 8.5 out of 10, 8 out of 10, probably. Many moments made you question, especially Sabine progressing so fast through the Force. It felt stupid in my opinion. It felt unnecessary. It felt like we were getting another version of Rey. Although it does make sense for Sabine to have that Force ability, just because she is a Vizsla. She is a Vizsla, and Vizslas are Force sensitive. That's just the fact of the matter. Like it's not like it doesn't make sense for her to have the Force. It's just the way she progressed so fast from not being able to lift a cup off a table to being able to push Ezra across like a 30-meter gap, 20-meter gap, whatever it was. It felt like we were watching Rey. It was Rey Skywalker. So that's one of the things I didn't like about it. I have a couple of other criticisms of it as well, like how I don't know, man, like none of them are coming to mind. Some of the choreography felt a little bit interesting. I would have loved to see a lot more of Shin and Baylan Skoll. I thought they were really interesting characters, and we just didn't see them at all. And now I don't know how if they're gonna show them or not in season 2, because obviously Baylan, the actor of Baylan, has passed away. Ray Stevenson, may he rest in peace. I wish he got to see the success of the show. It wasn't the most successful Star Wars show, but I wish he got to see the love that he received from all the fans. They were the most two loved characters, Shin and Baylan, in the show, I'd say. A lot of fans even loved them more than Ahsoka in the show, in that show specifically, not overall. But yeah, I wish he could have seen the success that his character had. But yeah, so with his passing, I don't know how they're going to show a lot more of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati in the next season. Do they recast? Do they CGI? I don't know. They would have to find a way to do that, or do we just not get them? Do we get them in animations? I don't know. But I do want to see more of them, that's for sure. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on all the movies and TV shows of Star Wars, guys. Is there anything else I missed, do you reckon? How do you W list, L list? Like, let me know. What would you change from this list? Do you guys like my favorites, like in that top 5 especially, Clone Wars, Episode 3, Episode 5, Episode 6, Andor? I know Andor is a pretty controversial one, but the rest of them I don't think are too controversial. People, like, those are pretty much facts that those are where they should be. Like, I don't think there's any Star Wars fan that would put that top 4 anywhere else on this list. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you would change from this list, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.